briefly on my background. So I, American by birth, studied computer science undergrad, worked for Citibank initially, and then moved to China in 2004. And I was in China for about 15 years, and then moved to Singapore a couple of years ago. So, I mean, over the time that I've been here in Asia, I've seen a true transformation. And when you think about born digital or digital first, it's a digitally native. It's typically in the context of companies. You know, these are companies that have started in the cloud and started with agile infrastructure. In Asia, it's actually the consumers that were digital first. If you look at PC ownership as a good example, PC ownership in the States would be about 85%. So meaning that 85% of households have some kind of computer in their household. In China, that number is less than 50%. Instead, people are using their smartphones. And so the availability of very cheap, fully functioning Android smartphones has led China and a lot of the rest of the region to be one of the largest adopters of smartphone technology. You know, the region is very diverse, obviously, in Asia, when you look at from Japan down to New Zealand. And each of those countries have a different level of development and a different set of challenges that they faced over the course of this year. So if you look at some of the more developed countries, you know, they were able to get around a lot of the restrictions in terms of, you know, continuing the day-to-day lives. But then when you look at a place like Indonesia or the Philippines, the impact there was really tremendous. One thing that this pandemic has exposed is some of the weaknesses in some of the institutions that we think of as being the end game. You know, many of us thought that capitalism was kind of the end game, and we've seen kind of the weaknesses in capitalism. Many people think that democracy is potentially the end game, and China needs to move to a democracy. I can tell you that a good corollary, and it's a case study that's used in multiple different areas, but India, China. India is a democracy, and their approach to the pandemic and the control of the pandemic has been lackluster. Whereas China, although, you know, China had a huge impact at the very beginning, using technology, using surveillance, using some of the tools that we might object to in fully democratic societies, enabled them to contain the virus. Similarly, here in Singapore, any building that you enter, you have to scan a QR code that's linked into a Bluetooth app on your phone that tracks you. That's a tracking mechanism. But the interesting thing in both of these markets is that people are willing to do that because of the collective good. And they understand they're willing to make those sacrifices for, you know, society to overcome these challenges and move forward. In terms of Asia, you know, I think obviously China is starting to pull out of this. You know, many of the governments across the region have used this as an excuse to push digitalization. So we're seeing digital banks here in Singapore, in Hong Kong, in Australia. You know, some are successful, some are not. Different topic of conversation there, but I think really what we're seeing around the digitization in general, but then specifically around finance, is quite compelling. And you know, it's made. I kind of went through personally the first few months and said, okay, this is nothing. But I think the psychological impact of everything that's happened is really incredible and underestimated. I guess my word, if I had one word to sum it up, is resilience. Both in terms of personal and business.